Hi, my name is Alex. Please listen to my story. It's dramatic, unfair, and at times it feels unbelievable, but it's mine. I am in my early 50s now, and I never imagined that life would turn out this way. I thought that if I worked hard, if I sacrificed, my family would find peace. Instead, I often feel like I'm trapped in a nightmare that I can't wake up from. I've been a delivery rider for many years. Every morning at 9, I climb onto my motorcycle and begin another endless day. By the time I return home, the clock usually reads midnight. 15, sometimes 16 hours every single day. My body aches, my stomach growls, but I don't stop. If I rest for even 30 minutes, I call it a loss. Because those 30 minutes could have meant another package delivered, another bill paid, another small step towards survival. My average monthly income is about $6,000. People hear that number and say, wow, that's a lot. They don't see the hours, the broken body, the emptiness inside. They don't see me skipping breakfast, ignoring lunch, and eating only one meal late at night. They don't see the nights I come home with trembling hands, whispering to myself, just one more hour, Alex. Just keep going. I wasn't always like this. In my younger days, I was full of energy, quick to laugh, someone who believed that life would reward persistence. When I first met my wife, I wanted to impress her. I remember holding up my phone, showing her my delivery app. Look, I said proudly, I made $800 in a single day. Her eyes widened with excitement, and I thought I had won her heart. In that moment, I believed hard work could win me love. I never imagined that years later, that same work would feel like a chain around my neck. I am not perfect. I've made mistakes in life, financial missteps, poor decisions, times when I let my temper or pride guide me. But I always tried to make up for it by working harder, by pushing myself further. My nature has always been quiet, patient. I am not the type to argue or shout. If someone yells, I usually lower my head and say, I'm sorry. It's easier than fighting back, easier than letting anger consume me. But that patience has become my curse. Because when I walk through the door of my home after 16 hours of labor, I am not greeted with warmth. I am met with suspicion, criticism, sometimes outright hostility. Why didn't you tell me the rice was gone yesterday? My wife once snapped. I blinked in confusion. I didn't know. I thought there would be enough. She glared at me. You always pick the worst time. You're so careless. Moments like these happen more often than I can count. A missing meal, a forgotten word, clothes not prepared the night before. Each small thing turns into an explosion. I've learned to stay quiet, to bow my head. But inside, I ask myself, is this really what marriage is meant to be? Before I enter my house each night, I stand outside for 5 or 10 minutes, whispering a silent prayer, not for wealth, not for comfort, just for survival. Please, I tell myself, let tonight pass without a fight. Let me see my child asleep, let me rest in peace. Imagine that, praying not for happiness, but for the absence of disaster. That is what my life has become. I hide the sweat-soaked jacket I wear during the day because my wife says I smell like an old man, like dust and metal. I keep my distance because she fears I will bring sickness into the house. Even in bed, I sometimes wear a mask just to avoid another argument. The home I once dreamed of has become a battlefield, and I am always the losing soldier. Still, I keep riding. Still, I keep coming home. Because I tell myself that maybe tomorrow will be different. Maybe she will smile, maybe she will see my effort. But deep down, I know the storm is waiting. And this is only the beginning. The rice pot was just the start. The missing clothes just the spark. What comes after will shake the very foundation of my life. And if you think what I've told you so far sounds harsh, wait until you hear what happens next. That night, after 16 hours on the road, I came home with nothing left in me but hunger and exhaustion. My hands were trembling from the cold wind, my stomach hollow from running on coffee and water. All I wanted was one thing, a warm bowl of rice to remind me that home was still a place of comfort. I walked straight to the rice pot and lifted the lid. Empty. Not a single grain remained. I froze, staring into the void, as if that pot reflected the emptiness inside me. Slowly I turned toward my wife. "Was there no rice left?" I asked, my voice careful, almost pleading. She didn't hesitate. "You should have checked yesterday," she shot back, arms folded. "Why do you always wait until the last minute?" I didn't know," I stammered. "I thought there would be enough." "You never think," she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut through my fatigue. "Do you think rice just cooks itself? You come home and expect everything to magically be there." Her words pierced deeper than the hunger in my belly. For a second my pride wanted to fight back. Didn't she see me riding through storms, through traffic, through endless miles just to keep this family alive? But I swallowed it all. My nature has always been to endure, to bow my head, to say the words that keep the peace. "I'm sorry," I murmured. "I'll try to be more careful." She scoffed. "Always sorry. But sorry doesn't fill the rice pot, does it?" I sat there speechless. This wasn't just about rice. It was about respect, or the lack of it. After 16 hours of work, I wasn't welcomed as a husband who had given his body to provide. I was treated like a child who had failed at a chore. That night I sat at the table in silence while she fed our child. She never offered me a plate, never looked my way. My stomach ached, but the ache in my heart was worse. And this was not an isolated moment. It became a pattern. Some nights she would call me 20 times while I was out on the road. "When are you coming home? How much did you make today?" No answers satisfied her. If I said I'll be home soon, she accused me of being late. If I said I made 300, she scoffed, "That's all?" I tried to understand. Raising a child is exhausting, I told myself. Maybe she was just stressed. But those sharp words kept cutting deeper until I began to feel like a stranger in my own home. There was one evening that still echoes in my mind. I came home drenched in sweat, and before I could take off my jacket, she wrinkled her nose. "You smell like an old man," she said coldly, "like rust and sweat. Do you expect me to sit next to that?" My son looked up at me, confused, his innocent eyes darting between us. I forced a smile and whispered, "Daddy just needs a shower." But inside, my spirit collapsed. I was a man who could endure 40 miles of deliveries in the rain, who could keep riding even when my body begged to stop. Yet here I was, unable to defend myself against a single sentence spoken in my own home. That night, lying in bed with a mask over my face because she feared I would bring illness to our child, I thought about that empty rice pot again. It wasn't just food that was missing. It was warmth. It was care. It was love. And I asked myself a question I never thought I would: how long can I survive like this? Because if an empty rice pot could spark this much fury, what will happen when something bigger, something heavier finally breaks? After the night of the empty rice pot, something inside me shifted. I realized that coming home no longer felt like returning to safety. It felt like entering hostile ground. Each evening as midnight approached and I guided my motorcycle back toward the apartment, my chest grew tighter. The road behind me was exhausting. But the few steps from the door to the living room, those were the most terrifying miles I traveled all day. I began to develop a ritual. I would stop at the door, helmet in hand, jacket still clinging to my skin with the stink of gasoline and sweat. I'd stand there in that dim corridor whispering a prayer: "Please let tonight pass quietly. Please let there be no explosion. Let me see my child in peace. I never prayed for happiness anymore, only for survival. The smell of detergent from other apartments mixed with the cold night air as I lingered. Sometimes I pretended to check my phone, just so the neighbors wouldn't wonder why a grown man was frozen at his own front door. But the truth was simpler. I was afraid. When I finally gathered the courage to step inside, I moved carefully, like a thief in my own house. The sound of the latch unlocking seemed louder than thunder. I slipped my shoes off silently, placed them against the wall at a perfect angle, anything to avoid provoking complaint. Most nights, the first words I heard weren't greetings, they were commands. Did you wash your hands? Change your clothes before touching him. Put on your mask. Now. And I obeyed every time, because obedience was easier than argument. On nights when her mother stayed over, the air was even heavier. The way she looked at me, half suspicion, half disdain, made me feel like a tenant who hadn't paid rent. One evening, as I reached for a fresh shirt, the baby stirred in the bedroom. The drawer squeaked just a little. "Why are you waking him?" my wife hissed. "I was only— You should have prepared earlier. I told you." Her mother's voice followed, calm but firm. "You never think ahead. That's your problem." I wanted to scream that I had thought ahead, that I had thought of nothing but this family every hour of every day, that I had traded my body for money and my pride for peace. But my mouth stayed closed. All I could manage was a quiet, "I'm sorry." In the bathroom mirror, I barely recognized the man staring back. His eyes were bloodshot, his face sagged. His mouth formed apologies before the words even came. I ran the faucet low so the pipes wouldn't rattle, and washed my hands as if cleansing myself of invisible crimes. Later, lying on a thin mat by the window, my place when her mother stayed in the bedroom, I stared at the ceiling. The mask pressed against my face, hot and suffocating, but taking it off would mean another fight. The streetlight outside carved pale bars across the floor, and I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Some nights she spoke into the dark. "Tomorrow, make sure the rice pot isn't empty again." "Yes." "And the clothes, prepare them before you leave." "Yes." "And don't ignore my calls." "You ignored me today." I was writing. The traffic. Excuses. The word hung in the air like smoke. I turned to the wall, swallowing everything I wanted to say. One night my son coughed in his sleep, a small, sharp sound. I rose instinctively, but before I could reach him, her mother was already there with a cup of water, sending me a look that told me to stay back. I froze, hands useless, heart aching. My boy's cough subsided, but the silence afterward felt like a judgment passed against me. I lay back down, staring at a crack in the ceiling that spread like a map of roads. Roads I could no longer ride. Roads that led everywhere except home. And as my eyes finally drifted shut, one thought burned in my mind: if I must pray before stepping into my own house, then what kind of life am I living? And if even prayer can't protect me forever, then what storm is waiting for me next? Meals in our house were never quiet, not the warm, comforting silence of a family sharing food, but the brittle silence that cracks with the first word. I would sit at the table, hands folded, waiting, hoping, but the moment the dishes were set down, something always shattered. "Why do you chew like that? It's disgusting. You smell like sweat, like an old man. Every time I look at you, I see your mother's face, and I can't stand it." The words came like arrows, sharp and deliberate. I kept my eyes on the bowl, trying to swallow food and humiliation at the same time, but sometimes she took the bowl away before I could. "Don't eat. Go to your mother if you're hungry." The sting wasn't in the hunger, it was in front of my child. My son sat there, spoon in hand, eyes darting between us. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the anger. And children always remember the anger. I tried to defend myself once. Please don't say those things while he's watching. She laughed bitterly. What things? The truth? Should I lie for your pride? Her mother nodded in agreement, as if each insult needed a witness. I felt cornered, like an animal with no escape except silence. But silence only made it worse. Why aren't you answering me? Do you think ignoring me makes you look better? I just don't want to argue. Then you admit I'm right. No, always excuses. Her voice was louder than the clatter of plates, sharper than the chopsticks striking porcelain. My son flinched and my heart broke in ways I couldn't show. Sometimes she mocked me for things I didn't even do. If I didn't grill the meat fast enough, she said, "What kind of man can't cook a simple piece of meat?" Useless. If I grilled it too quickly, she sneered, "Always rushing, never careful. Do you want us to choke?" It didn't matter what I did. Wrong was already waiting. One night I tried to lighten the mood, reaching across the table. "This one looks perfect. Try it." She slapped the chopsticks away. "Don't act like we're happy. You think a piece of meat makes up for everything? You're pathetic." The words hit harder than any blow. I lowered my eyes, chewing quietly, praying my son would focus on his food and not on me. Inside, though, I was boiling. I wanted to shout, to slam the table, to demand, "What crime have I committed except working myself to death for this family?" But I knew the answer. It wasn't about crime. It was about power. And in that house I had none. So I became smaller each day. My voice softer, my shoulders hunched, my presence fading. Yet the attacks only grew stronger because weakness never satisfies anger. It only feeds it. That night, when the plates were cleared and the lights went out, I lay awake again on my thin mat. The ceiling crack looked wider, like it was splitting above me. I thought about the rice pot, the mask, the scolding, the insults at the table, each one a small fracture. And I knew fractures don't stay small. They spread. They break. And somewhere deep inside me, beneath all the apologies and the silence, something else was stirring. Something I couldn't yet name. Because a man can survive hunger, he can survive exhaustion, but can he survive being erased piece by piece in his own home? The fights grew sharper as time went on. What began with rice pots and shirts turned into battles over everything: my breathing, my footsteps, even the way I looked at the floor. Each day I came home already guilty of something, though I never knew what until the accusations landed. "You never helped with the baby. You only know how to ride that bike. You're useless inside this house. Even your voice annoys me. Every time I see your face, I think of your mother, and I can't stand it." Each sentence was another strike, not against my body, but against my spirit. And though I kept my head down, though I whispered, "I'm sorry," until the words lost all meaning, the storm never stopped. One evening I was sitting at the table silent when she snapped suddenly, "Why are you just staring at me? Are you mocking me?" I shook my head quickly. "No, I wasn't." "Then say something. Do you think ignoring me makes you better than me?" The food in front of me blurred. My son's small hand gripped his spoon, frozen in midair. I swallowed hard and whispered, "I don't want to argue." She slammed her chopsticks down. "Then admit I'm right. Admit you're worthless." I had no answer. And in that silence I felt something inside me snap, not into rage but into emptiness. Like a string pulled too tight for too long, breaking without a sound. Nights blurred into each other. I lay on the mat, mask over my face, staring at the crack in the ceiling that stretched wider each week. I thought of the hours I rode, the miles I covered, the risks I took just to keep us afloat. Out there, at least the rules were clear: you ride, you deliver, you earn. In here there were no rules, only traps. I began to wonder if I was disappearing. My words were useless, my presence unwanted. I feared that one day my son would look at me and see nothing but a shadow, a man erased inside his own house. But in the quietest hours, when everyone else was asleep, I sometimes let my hand rest on my son's tiny back, feeling the steady rhythm of his breath. In those moments I remembered why I endured. Not for her scorn, not for the endless apologies, but for him. For the chance that he might grow up to know a different kind of life, one built on care instead of contempt. I don't know how long I can carry this weight. I don't know if tomorrow will bring peace or another explosion. But I know this: I cannot allow myself to vanish completely. Somewhere inside me, even if it's buried under years of silence, there is still a man who wants to stand, to fight, to live with dignity. And so I keep praying before I open the door. I keep whispering promises to myself in the dark. Maybe one day those promises will become more than whispers. Because they say marriage is built on trust and love. But what if both are gone? Can a man still call it a family, or is it just another kind of prison? One where the chains are invisible but the pain is endless. Thank you for listening to my story. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, please like this video and subscribe to the channel.